Hey, Salim here. Today we will be creating this beautiful material with the new Substrate NPR shading in Unreal Engine 5.8. If you know Unreal Engine's basics and you have some casual knowledge about PBR and Substrate material, this tutorial is for you. So let's dive in. First of all, we need to know what is Substrate NPR shading, what is special about it, and we will compare it to the old techniques and know how it fits into the ecosystem. So what is Substrate NPR shading? Actually, it's a stylized non-photorealistic rendering solution built on the Substrate blendable GBuffer mode, and we can achieve it by using Substrate toon BSDF slab in the material graph. So we can ask ourselves, what is the difference then between post-processed materials and the new Substrate NPR shading? The post-processed material is applied to all the screen. It means we can create a general look that we will project on the screen. Think of it like an Instagram filter. Therefore, there is some ways to isolate it to a single actor by using some custom depth pass and multiple techniques like this. And it is based on the old PBR system. And since we are gradually switching to the new Substrate system, it will fit less and less to the new workflows. And the major caveat is that we control only the material emissive input. So it's kind of very limited. On the other hand, Substrate NPR shading is completely independent and acts really like a material. So we can have on the same actor some realistic and non-realistic shaders on the same time on different parts of the mesh, for example. And it's based on the new Substrate BSDF model. So it opens a lot of new possibilities for blending and look, and we can control most material inputs. It supports all light types and supports also domain global elimination, what makes it more production ready for realistic rendering inside Unreal Engine 5. So it's a huge upgrade. So let's go to the engine, and to create a material, let's click on add, button add here. We will find material here, and we will find also a category called material and material. Same way, we can right click here and we will have the same window, you see. So let's create a material, and yeah, it's called m underscore tutorial 2 live. Yeah. So to affect it, we will have just to drag it like this, or we can select our mesh and we will find a materials section here, and we can drag it here also. It will be the same. The third way is like if we have our material selected, we can catch it by this arrow button, this one. Yeah. So yeah, I will do it the simplest way. I will drag it directly. So we will have just to double click here and we have our material graph. Cool. Let's save it and see what's happening. First thing we will do, we will search for our new slab. We can search here for toon, and we will find something called Substrate toon BSDF. We can see it's almost the same inputs. You see, base color, metallic, specular, specular. It's quite familiar. So we will just have to drag this slab here directly to the front material input. And now we are controlling our material with this new slab called Substrate toon BSDF. See? And when we click, let's see what's happening. Yeah, we have our material. As you see, our material is already like a non-regular material because there is no more like very gradient light. We have these sharp transitions like this. So it's already looking like a toon material actually. So let's discover what's happening with this lab. We have the first one, the base color. The base color, it controls the overall color of a material. The second one, metallic, it controls if the material is dielectric, plastic-like, or metallic. The third one, specular, it controls the reflectivity of non-metallic materials. Roughness defines how light interacts with the material. if the material is rough or smooth. The normal creates the illusion of macro details and things like bumps and scratches and things like this. Emissive color, it defines if the material glows, emits lights, and things like this. Pattern UVs, it renders the diffuse and specular, and it will control the very artistic aspect of this kind of materials. It's a new one. Anisotropy, it controls the specular lobe. Is it elongated? Is it stretched or not? And finally, the tangent, it will take the tangent as input and we can manipulate it. So let's create our first node. Let's search for something called constant 3 vector, and let's drag it to the base color. Now we can choose a color. We can double click and color pick here, or I will write it directly here by RGB channels. I'll say 045, 045 for the greens and 045 for the blues. And let's see what's happening when we compile this and apply this. Yeah. So this is our color. And for the metallic, let's search for a constant, as we need a value from 0 to 1. And yeah. Actually, we will need a plastic like 1, so it will be a 0 actually here. See? As a specular, same thing. We can leave it like this, it will be 0.5, or we can search also for a constant. And we will put it as 0.5. For the roughness, same thing. We can search for the constant, or we can Ctrl C, Ctrl V, and we will copy this constant and drag it on the roughness slab, and it will be 0.5 also. Now for the normal, for this tutorial we will not use normal and we will not use emissive color, but we will use something called pattern UVs. And for this one we will need a texture. And I will search for something called cloud. It will be a texture. You can highlight the texture here or filter here for texture, you see. And let's search for the global content folder, something called cloud mask. You can choose whatever you want. I found this one interesting, so yeah. So I just drag this one into my graph, and I will just use the red channels here. And the last one, anisotropy, we will need a constant. And let's put this like yeah, you see here the specular is elongated now. Let me show you the difference between like this. See, we'll see difference. Yeah. And we have now the basis of our material. If you click on the Substrate Toon BSDF slab, we will discover something called Toon Profile, this one. So we will have to create this asset. So how we do this. Right click here and type toon, and we will find toon profile here. Yeah, let's call it toon profile 2 live. And the first thing we will try to do is like click in here on substrate and we will drag it. Yeah. So nothing changes here because by default this is the configuration. So you will need to change it here. So let's discover what's happening inside, and we have some categories. We have diffuse, specular, shadow, global illumination, and some experimental stuff. Let's start by diffuse ramp. The diffuse ramp, we can have the gradient of the light, how light and color, how it's behaving here. You see, it's respecting the same structure. So what I'll try to do is make the shadows completely red and the midtones on the blue, and we will have the same color here in the highlights. So let's change this. All the shadows with the magenta spectrum thing. Okay. This one also. This one will be bluish. Okay, and this part will stay the same. Let's save and have an idea what's happening. As you see it, there is something like blue like this, and when we animate it, you will see that we'll start to have, yeah, some red stuff in the shadows here. You see? So what we'll try to do next is we'll start to manipulate the color, and what we did it before, we used something is called pattern UV, and it will multiply with this diffuse ramp offset texture. Let's search for the same texture we used. It's called cloud mask RGBA. This one. Yeah. And for it to work, we need to increase the strength for sure. So let's do something like 0.58. And we see our diffuse color is now distorted because our texture here is controlling the UVs, and this is what's happening. So let me show you something. If I remove the pattern UV, we will have something like this, and everything will start looking straight. But when we use the pattern UVs, it will go back to the psychedelic patterns like this. Yeah. Next, we will need to modify the speculars. So as you see here, the specular lobe is elongated but very small. I need to make it a little bit bigger. So what we can do is, like in the specular ramp, I can drag this one toward the blacks a little bit more, so the highlights will look much bigger. You see the difference? The next thing we need is to manipulate the shadows, and what we need is the shadow extension, this one. Now it's very big, and we see because the shadow is completely black here. So we will decrease it to 1, and already we are starting to see the red shadows here and the blues, and yeah. And we will scroll down and we search for experimental. Diffuse ramp includes shadow. Let's take this one, and voila. Let's see it. Cool. The good thing about like the toon BSDF is like you can imagine whatever pattern and how shadows and midtones and highlights are behaving in terms of specular and color diffuse and everything, and you can sculpt it whatever you want. So this is really really amazing. So now you can ask me how I created this environment and the level sequence and things like this. So let's start by the level sequence. It's quite easy. For this one, I'm just using a camera, and the camera is focused into the material. And I used the sun sky already in my level, and I'm just changing the solar time. So you see, the solar time is changing. For the environment, I'm using the environment DOM. This one is from the HDRI backdrop. You can search it, like you can search it here, DOM, and you'll find it in the plugins folder. If you search on the plugin folder, you can find it. Yeah, this one. For the scale, I put it to 100. And for the material, blue material, it's quite easy. Let me show you. It's a substrate slab BSDF, regular substrate slab. And I have a diffuse color here, a blue diffuse color. And for the F90, I have a reddish color. And for the texture, I use the texture to control the roughness. This one is called Hermite Noise. Yeah, and that's it. This is our environment. We have our material, and it's looking great, right? So, thank you for your time, and see you next time.